Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the CMS Annual Report training. This is the third training webinar, if you will, that we've done. We're starting a series of training sessions like this over the coming months. We've already done holiday program, we've done client merge. This is the third, and mark your calendar, September 29th, for all you treasurers that are out there. We'll be doing pledges is the next training session. So if you need a refresher on pledges, or you just want to learn about pledges and see how you can use them in your conference, save that date, and when the registration opens up, certainly feel free to register. As a former conference president, I know the stress that you feel this time of the year with annual report, that there's just so many things you got to nail down. So I certainly understand that. Where I thought I'd begin is at the end. I like to always look at the end in mind and say, what's the goal? What's the goal of the annual report process? And to me, there's really two things: to complete it, to have a complete and accurate annual report. That's the goal. And that consists of two things. One, what CMS knows. And what CMS knows is what you've entered into the system for the last 12 months. All your cases, regardless of whether they were cases with clients that you assisted or didn't assist, whether they were financial or in-kind, they're in the system. CMS knows about that. CMS knows about all of the hours and miles that were entered into the system, and that CMS automatically generated for each case. As when you went to the visit tab, you put in your hours and miles. That's what CMS knows. So I am very confident that if you just went over to the annual report and pressed the button, you would get out exactly what we put in throughout the entire year. But that's only a piece of the puzzle. The second piece is what you know that CMS does not know. And that's what makes it a complete report. What CMS knows is what it knows, and it doesn't know what it doesn't know. But you certainly know some of the other programs, special work programs that you've had in your conference, that you have burned hours up against, that you have used your financial resources or in-kind resources. And all that together, to me, makes up a complete and accurate annual report. So I also like to start with the process. Firm believer in process. If you understand the process, the mechanics are easy, the technology is easy. But first, you got to understand what process we go through. To me, it's a four-step process. There is the prepare step, if you will, and then we move to the update, and then we print the report, and then we submit the report. Those are the four basic steps. And what I've done is I've created an annual report reference guide, which Amanda sent to you in advance for you to either have it open or print it, so that we're going to go through it. But the purpose of this guide, it's a reference guide. It is not a user guide. It doesn't have any screenshots in it. It's not a tutorial guide. It doesn't have step-by-step, do step one, do step two. It's a reference guide. It's to be used in conjunction with the annual report feature. And that's the purpose of it. Now later on, I'll show you when I do the demo, we've actually put this guide out underneath the user guide button that's up on top of the screen in CMS. So it is one of the selections, and all you need to do is select it, and you can see it within CMS. So you don't have to go, you don't have to worry about where did you put that file. It's right in CMS. for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each one of these phases of the process, the preparation phase. I'm going to show you the preparation checklist. These are the things I believe you need to do between now and September 30th. You being the conference presidents, the treasurer, and obviously your conference members. And then I will show you updating reports. And let me explain to you what we mean about reports. When you look at, and some of you have already done this, you know the annual report wizard fairly well. Each one of those tabs is what we call a report. Obviously, the mega report is the final annual report. Then I'll discuss the printing option so you understand what does it mean when I hit the print key and the print button versus the view, and of course submitting the final report. So that will be pretty much the way this thing's going to flow. So let me start with the preparation checklist. I developed this for you, not for me, so that you would have a checklist to know what needs to get done. And I believe this checklist needs to get done between now and September 30th. Some of this stuff I'm sure is already done and you don't need to worry about it. I broke it up by two roles. One, what the conference members need to do. And the second role is what the president and treasurer, because I believe the president and the treasurer are the ones that are ultimately responsible for the integrity of the annual report. So, and so what I'm going to do is we're going to kind of go through these pretty fast, but then I'm going to demo for you how you can use the system to actually identify a lot of these areas and assist you in entering in all the hours and knowing where the open cases are and that sort of stuff. The tools that you have available. So let's start at the top. You probably heard this from the beginning of last year, fiscal year. Close all your cases. And I put in parentheses, that makes sense to close. We don't want somebody just to close a case that they just got today or on September 28th, just so that we have it in the annual report if it's really active and they're going to be working on the case until October 3rd, October 4th. That makes no sense. But the ones that you've had out there for a while, the treasurer's already paid the request. Those are the ones you want to go after and you want to close those before September 30th. Because, and most of you know this, but I'll say it again, CMS only looks at closed cases. When we gather all the information for the statistics for the number of visits, if you will, for the in-kind, CMS is only looking at closed cases. We don't care if it's a closed case with assistance or a closed case without assistance. Doesn't matter. It's a closed case. That's what CMS is looking at. So one way of knowing how do I identify the open cases so I can go work on those or at least get somebody to work on them to close them. Well, the one way that I think you should, the function I think you should use to do that, by the way, I'll demo this, is the caseworker by caseworker function. And I'll show you that later on. And that's one of the tools in your bag that I think that you can use. Close ongoing cases and then reopen anytime after September 30th. So some of the conferences have long-term cases, and I don't know what long-term is. Long-term could be 3 months, long-term could be a year. And sometimes they span fiscal years. What I'm recommending for those, go ahead and close them prior to September 30th, and then October 1, just reopen them. It's the same case. It's not a different case number, but that way there, all the work that that caseworker did will be recognized on the annual report for 2021. Drawing pledge check request is a two-step process. So this is one of the things that happens every year. There's a couple of things that happen every year. Having done this for a while, I can tell you the two things that come in. One is that I can guarantee you I'll bet my St. Vincent de Paul paycheck that I don't receive on this one. About 3 weeks, 2 weeks before the close, I will get a phone call or I'll get a support ticket from 1 to 2 conferences that says, I have about 200, 300 cases open. Can you close them for me? And the answer is no, we can't. And neither can Agilon. But that's just symptom of the problem. They did not close the cases throughout the year. That's the first thing. The second thing that I've seen is that you can't close the case because the check request is got a withdrawn status. You'll see that, it's bright blue. Well, what people tend to forget that withdrawing the check is a 2-step process. You have to withdraw it and they do that fine, but then you have to click on it to delete it. And that's the step that they miss. And that's why CMS will stop you from closing a case. And again, I'll demo some of this stuff for you. Enter volunteer hours and miles. I think we said that a zillion times, and of course, you know how to do that through the app function. But then again, I know that if you're on the CMS app right now, you are having problems. You cannot do that using the CMS app. That what we're doing is for those that are having experience in that problem, well, we're giving them the 4.0 link to do it, which does fix the problem. But again, I'll demo adding volunteer tasks. And the other one that the conference member needs to look into is to verify their age group in their My Profile. And, you know, maybe they had a birthday and they moved from one age group to another age group throughout the fiscal year. Or maybe they still want to say that they're 39 years old. That's fine too. But just take a pass at it just to make sure that it is accurate, because that's information that we use on the membership report of the annual report. When we slice and dice all the membership information by age group is one of the dimensions. Now we get into the conference president and treasurer's stuff to do. One of the things I recommend is that you verify all your members are in CMS with at least a conference member role. And the tool that I recommend that you use to do that is to print your membership roster, because that will show you everybody that's in the system that has at least a conference member role. And obviously, if you don't have somebody on that report, then you don't have them in CMS. And regardless of whether they use CMS or not, they need to be in CMS with a conference member role in order for it to be accumulated on the membership report. Don't remove members that left during the fiscal year because they will not appear on the membership report. So, as an example, you had a member that left in December of 2020. Don't remove them. And the way you remove them, conference administrators know this, is by removing all their roles. It's a logical delete. It is not a physical delete. There is no go in there and just physically delete this member. I think the thinking was that they might come back sometime, and all we got to do is reactivate them. But here's the trick. The trick is that you want to leave them there until you close out the fiscal year, and then go ahead and remove them. Don't remove them now. So if you have already removed them and you want them to be on your 2021 annual report, my suggestion is that you just go back in there and reactivate them and give them a conference member role. Here's another one for conference presidents and treasurers for the annual report. There are some categories in the hours and miles that individuals don't record, and they're assuming somebody else is doing it, and somebody else might be your conference secretary. As an example, conference meetings. I know at Holy Family, what we do, if we have a conference meeting and there's 10 people and we spend 2 hours, then that's 20 hours times 60 minutes. That's 1,200 minutes. whatever it is. We make one entry in CMS, our secretary does for that, rather than every conference member going in there saying, I spent 2 hours and I drove 5 miles. Our conference secretary does that each and every month. There's other categories like that, like your Christmas program. Rather than every member, and by the way, you had some non-members maybe that participated in your Christmas program, you can go in there and just make one entry for all the minutes and all of the miles, and it shows on the report. You gotta remember, the thing that CMS or that everybody's most interested in is really the total hours and miles. It's not so much the breakdown, although we give the breakdown, that's not where the eye goes. The eye goes to the total hours and the total miles. So don't let perfect be the enemy of good. It doesn't have to be perfect. So if you find a category and it's not exact, then use something that's close. But get the hours and get the miles in at the individual level and also at the conference level. The last thing I'm recommending that I did not do when I was the conference president, so I am guilty, is to create what I call a special works program worksheet. And the reason why that's valuable, it's valuable for you. You're going to need it, whether you do it on a piece of paper or in your head, doesn't matter. At some point in the annual report process, you're going to need to update some totals on the visit side and on the in-kind side. And my solution to that problem is create a worksheet ahead of time. Also, it's great as you pass the role on to somebody else, they know exactly what to do. They got a template. And that's valuable for the next president or the next treasurer. Okay. Here is the special works program worksheet that I created. And again, this is only an idea. You don't have to do it. CMS doesn't require it. It's a way for me to get organized so that when I do need to update those payment reports in CMS, I have all the data and I thought through it. So these are examples. That's all they are. So some examples of some of the special programs that you might have, special works programs is a Christmas program, Thanksgiving, school backpack, summer lunch, food service, and who knows what else you got. But these are things that only you know. CMS does not know about them because they were not entered into CMS. You had a Christmas program, I'm sure you spent money. Maybe you used some in-kind food, and certainly you had volunteers that put in a lot of hours and drove a lot of miles. That's the kind of information that needs to go into the system. And just this is an example, and we'll be working through this later on. Let me go to the top there and show you that for our Christmas program at Holy Family, and again, you probably should be because they're not exactly accurate, but it's just to make the point. We have a Christmas program. We have a Christmas party with our clients, and on an average, it's usually about 60 families. We figure about 3 people in family per family, so that's about 180 people. And we'll give them gift cards, Walmart gift cards, that our treasurer actually goes out and purchases. Now, we get those funds, obviously, from a special collection that we take, our giving tree collection during the Christmas season. And that's what we use the funds for to go buy the gift cards. The other thing is we feed them and we give them food. So although this is not a perfect example, but it's a good example, I'm going to say that the food was all donated. It's in kind. Okay. So let's go to the top line. We had 60 families. Number of people is 360. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Why 360? So of course, there were 60 people times $200. We spent $12,000. And volunteers worked, 20 volunteers worked 8 hours, 160, do the math, 9,600 minutes. And 20 volunteers drove 5 miles on an average, 100 miles. Okay? That's one thing that we gave them, a gift card. The second thing that we gave them is food. And that food was in kind. And we just value that at $25 per family. Pretty low, but let's just say that's an example. And that's $1,500. So I would go through all my programs and create this worksheet so that I would have it available when the time comes where I need to update my number of visits, my number of people helped, my in-kind goods, the value, that section of the annual report. I think I am now ready to do some demoing. I promised you I would do. Okay, so let me. Linda, are you there? There you go. I did it myself. Okay, cool. Okay, so if you remember, one of the first slides that I showed you, what the conference members need to do, what the conference presidents need to do, and we kind of talked through those. Now I'm going to show you the tools that you have available to help facilitate all of that. So let's start with open cases. How can you identify? So I said, close all your open cases. You said, that's great, John, but how do I know what they are? Well, go to search, go to cases by caseworker. And this is for Holy Family, if you will, Holy Family Conference. I'm going to choose the status of open and click search. There's all of our open cases that we have. And there you go. I can sort them by caseworker too. So this is one tool that you have available to show you all your open cases. And then you can decide whether or not they're eligible to be closed before the fiscal year or just leave them open until the next fiscal year. But at least you have a tool to identify it. There's another tool as well. Let me go back to home. Let me go to conference report, assistance by cases, case worker. This is a report, okay? Clear that. Same process. I want to see all the open cases. There they are in a report, and you can download them to a CSV file. So if you're just looking at them on the screen and you're okay with that, and you can notify the caseworker, hey, you got these cases open. Are they eligible to be closed? If not, fine. If so, go ahead and close them. If that's the way you work, that's great. If you wanted to, you can print out a listing. You could carve this up. Once it's obviously a CSV, it could be an Excel file. They carve it up, email it to the caseworker and say, these are all your open cases, please review them. Either way will get you there. But this is a tool that I recommend that you probably want to look at. Okay, so that's one tool. Uh, Why is the number of health always understated in CMS? Well, don't know what that means, if you're saying I'm counting X and CMS is counting Y, and you're probably referring to the monthly report, because we certainly uh, report on it there in the monthly, just like you do in the annual. Because CMS looks at closed cases. So if you had a case that you took in the middle of the month and you counted it as the case, CMS didn't, because it didn't close until the following month. CMS always looks at closed cases. It doesn't look at open cases or when the check was paid. Personally, that's what I think we should be looking at. It shouldn't be when we close the case. It really should be, when did we pay that assistance? That should be the barometer that we use. So hopefully that answers your question. I'm not sure if you have to, but I think it's more in the context of the monthly report, which obviously is going to be reflected in the annual report. Annual report, I'm going to tell you now, it only looks at closed cases for sure. Okay,
Go ahead and click the chat and read. You have one more question coming.
I'm sorry,
Click the chat up there where that red is and read that. You had one more question.
right here,
No, in the middle. Where that red is up at the top.
here.
So to your left. Go over to your left. Keep going. Oh, you're gonna go over to the middle of the screen, John. Where there's a chat.
Ah, okay, up on top. Okay, do you suggest leaving all dates open to ensure everything's open gets closed, i.e. someone leaves before they close out a case? Or just worry about dates for this whole year? Do you suggest leaving all dates open to ensure everything's open? So I'm not sure what you mean by that. What I'm suggesting is that you close what you can close. If stuff needs to stay open for good business reasons, keep it open. Don't close it.
This is Mickey. I'm the one that asked the question. So I don't think anybody's cleaned out our list for a long time. So if I'm
Yeah.
going in and trying to clean this out and we find open cases from 2 years ago that somebody left and it's just sitting there, are we okay to go in and close those and get this so that everything's within this last fiscal year, or just leave those out there and only worry about this last year?
The latter. Don't waste your time, because that's not going to mean anything anyway. Those years are gone. We've already reported on those fiscal years with or without those transactions. So you closing them is not going to impact anything, because the close date is going to be today's date. So it's going to be, who cares? Not the close date. Those are 2014. You're going to close them with 2014 dates, 2015. I would just leave those.
Okay, because I'm just thinking for whoever takes over in a role, why leave them a big old mess list when we can clean it up if we can?
Well, do it. If you have the time to do it, fine, but don't do it. Don't do it thinking that it's going to help this fiscal year. But if you want to do it from a conference standpoint, you just want to clean them up.
Okay, thank you.
Either way. Okay, so I guess I'll just minimize this, Amanda. Okay, cool. Okay, so I was on my demo and some of the tools to show you what you can use to assist you in some of the areas that I mentioned that conference members should be doing, that you should be doing. So we talked about cases by case worker, two things: the search and the report should assist you to identify open cases, and then you can go from there. The second thing we talked about, or one of the things we talked about, is the age group. And that's in everybody that has CMS has a profile. And the profile has a data element called age group, and it's groupings. And like I said, somebody had a birthday this year, fiscal year, and it pushed them, God bless them, into the over 40 category. Then they need to go there and update it just by clicking edit, and they can update it. While they're in there, verify everything else. But this is key, because on the annual report, The membership report specifically, we do break out that report by age group. So I would encourage your conference members to just go in there and just to verify it and change it, obviously, if it's necessary. This is also another dimension on that report, is that we break that report out by what we call access full members. And then just as members, I think it was, associates is what we used to call it. I think that's in the eyes of the beholder as far as the conference is concerned. The way we interpret it is we think of an active member as somebody who is very active. They have a role as a case intake person or a case worker or a treasurer or a president, and they're always involved in a lot of the special programs that we run, like our Christmas program. Those are active members. The ones that come to meetings twice a year that might participate in one event that we might have, Christmas or Thanksgiving, we don't consider them to be active. We consider them to be just a member and an associate. So that's the way we do it. I think there is a guideline somewhere in St. Vincent de Paul's, a rule or something that describes what is an active and what is an associate member. My only point of telling you that is the high level breakout of our membership report on the annual report. So that's another critical piece of data. Now, the other one is obviously volunteer tasks. And guess what? I can add volunteer tasks using CMS app. That's because I'm in the test system. You're in the production system, and there are error messages that come up every time that you use, and every time you try to do an add of a volunteer task. Hopefully, I don't receive that on the test system. I don't think so, but we'll try. Okay, so this is junk that's in the system. This is the test system. So don't do this and start critiquing it. It doesn't really matter. But the one point I'll make here is that CMS has done some work for you. Every case that you worked on, whether you provided assistance or didn't provide assistance, CMS logged the hours and the miles that the caseworker entered on the visit tab. That is automatic. So nobody needs to worry about that. CMS got that one. It's in there and it's going to be reported accordingly. So you can take that one off your list. So another dimension that you may or may not be aware of is that you can add non-member hours as well. A good example is our Christmas program. When we run the Christmas program, we have this big party for our clients. The volunteers are Vincentians, and some of them are parishioners. Some of them are from the community. They are not members of St. Vincent de Paul, but yet we count their hours. They still contribute to that event, and you can do that as well. And for those of you that like to have a report of all your hours for tax purposes, you can also download your hours and miles and print a report. So when you're preparing your taxes, you'll have your hours and miles that you spent for that charity event, better known as St. Vincent de Paul. So in case you weren't familiar with a lot of that, other than just add hours, I thought I would at least take this opportunity to review it with you. So we're going to add some hours. And I'm just going to pick a date because, by the way, the annual report I'm working with in this test system is 2020. It's not 2021. So just want to let you know. So I'm going to put in the date that within the October 1st, 2019 to September 30th, 2020 range. And by the way, this brings up an interesting conversation. So let's say it's October 1st, October 2nd, this year, 2021. But you want to still put hours in for 2021 fiscal year. You gotta remember, October 1st, 2021, we're into fiscal year 2022. But the day is October 1st, my wife's birthday, by the way, 2021, 2022. And you want to enter in hours in the 2021 fiscal year. You must backdate it into that fiscal year. Any date will do. Typically what I do, and this happens all the time, use the 9/30 date, 2021. That way there you could kind of like identify them in case you, rather than just picking a lot of random dates, use 9/30/2021. So this is going to happen. You're going to get into October and you're going to want to put hours into the system to be reflected in the annual report. That's how you do it. Okay, category. I'm just going to pick one. If this is an individual, well, then let's do this. Member training, just what we're doing today. You're on this Zoom call for an hour and a half, 90 minutes. I would go in there and log my hours right now. After the session's over with. And let's go someplace for the Zoom, it's probably 0 miles. But anyway, that's one. Obviously, continue to add. So that's for an individual, would probably do things like that. You need to see all the categories. And once again, this isn't going to be perfect. You're going to come across some activities that it just doesn't fit neatly in the box. You can't find one that says exactly what it is. Just pick one. Pick one that's close enough. Once again, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. We're not looking for perfection. We're looking for good, very good. So if you can't find it exactly, just pick one. So if you're a president and you have to then record hours at the conference level, and let's say that is for your Christmas party that we used before, the Christmas program, so that each individual doesn't need to go in there and do that. I'm sorry. There. Okay. So the Christmas party, there, Christmas program. You just want to record everybody's hours and miles, minutes in this case, obviously, rather than everybody go in there and do that, especially since you had, non-volunteers. But this is for your volunteers. You would record the non-volunteers by using the non-volunteer task function. So you just go in there and put in the minutes, and let's say it's 2,000 minutes. And on an average, all those volunteers traveled, who knows what, 300 miles total together. Okay. Now, this is important. Save button. If you don't click save, you're going to call me up. You're going to send me a support ticket, which I've received. And it says, I put in my hours and miles and they're gone. Well, you didn't click save. You have to click save. And we're going to get a date problem right there. So once again, I'm just going to put in 06-, well, I'm going to use 07 again. So I can identify 07, 01, 20, 20. System stopped me because I didn't put it in. I click save. And more than likely, they should be there somewhere. There they are, 1 and 2. They're out. If you wanted to delete those at any time, or if you wanted to change one, you go into the edit function. Just because you really can't change the ones that are system generated, but you certainly can change. So if you made a keying error, or you thought of a better category than you had in there originally, you go in there and update it, or you can go and delete them. If I want to delete those two, just check the box there and delete. Let's save. Well, they won't be gone. And now if we go back, they should be gone. And they are. They're not in the list at all anymore. So that's a tool that you can use for volunteer hours. The other one I wanted to show you is, that withdraw to check problem. So you know what it looks like. So when you see it, you know about it and you can deal with it. So I have a case out there, and I'm gonna go to Mika Porter's case. And I submitted a pledge request for Mika for $125. And for whatever the reasons, and the reason might be that she doesn't need the money anymore, she called me up. I get very few of those kinds of calls. Or we made a deal with her, she had to pay a certain amount of the electric bill before we pay our share, and she wasn't able to do it. What I want to do is withdraw the request. Now, this could be a check request, or it could be a pledge, really doesn't matter. In this case, it's a pledge. I will click on it. The first step to withdraw is to click withdraw. It says withdraw as approved pledge, yes. Now, this is what you see. So if the caseworker tried to close the case, at this point, the system would not let that caseworker close the case because they haven't completed the withdrawn process. Like I said, it's 2 steps. So the first step we did. The second step is to delete it. Once it's deleted, now the caseworker can go ahead and close the case. Okay? So those were the tools that you have available to help you prepare ahead of time. And so you get all the data in, whether it's the hours, you're checking for the age group, or if it's closing your cases, whatever it might be. These are the tools in CMS I recommend that you use that will make the process go a whole lot smoother. The other area I want to show off, the other feature, is that just last night, I had Aguilar load, you know, the reference guide you have in front of you right now, that is in CMS. So you go to the user guide, if I do this right, there is the reference guide. So it is available to you, so you don't have to worry about, you know, where'd you put that on your PC? You can't find that document, that file any longer, or it comes next year and you forgot all this stuff, God forbid. Well, all you gotta go is to the user guide, and this reference guide is there. Plus, there's another guide out there, I believe, that we have that's straight out of Aguilar. This is out of your user guide section. And if I scroll here, yeah, the annual report, annual financial report. This is the user guide. Mine is not a user guide. It's a reference guide. It's to be used in conjunction with the system, not to be used as quote standalone, if you will. Okay. So, that's that. I wanted to show you, so I am now going.
Now I've lost the audio.
I'm sorry? You lost the audio?
Actually, no, I've lost the picture. I can't see anything. My screen went black.
We're all having to finish. Yeah, you can continue, John.
Okay, can I, I guess I can paint down here. Okay,
John, you've got 30 minutes, just to like,
pardon me?
you're at 1 o'clock.
I'm at 1 o'clock already? Okay, we're gonna go through this. So, and I gotta get up here to see the toolbar. I gotta see the. I'll open it up. And, okay, okay. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go right into the demo of the annual report is what we're going to do. Okay, so the path to the annual report is, the way you get there is through check register, financial reports. Of course, you're familiar with that tab. You live it every day. You might be familiar with that, but this is the annual report. What you see when you get here, this says start 2020. This is the start date. There are a couple things that I wanted to review with you before we got here that bring up. But if you look at the page that says things you should know before using the report wizard. So I'm just going to read them to you. You have your document. The system opens up the annual report on August 1st. I don't know why August 1st, but it's August 1st. The annual report access, I just show you the path to it. When you get there, you will see the start button, which you see right there. It's a big button. You need to click it. When we get to the report wizard, and that's what we call it, the annual report wizard, you will see on each tab, there will be an initialize button, and you would click that to initialize that report. What that does, it goes out and gathers all the system generated data that's out there for CMS for that specific report. There's another thing that you should know. These are just general things that you should know about the wizard as you go through. When you see a check in a column or next to a field, if you will, that means that value was automatically calculated by CMS. Now, if you want to override that, and you say, well, that's great, but guess what? I know some other things CMS does not know, and I need to up that count by 25. What you would do is uncheck that box and replace, not add, that total with your total that you want it to be. So these are just some general things that you'll see throughout the wizard. But if you ever say, well, you know, I was wrong, I really want to use the system generated amount or count that's in there, just check the box again and click recalculate, which leads me into the next two. Your friends in the annual report are the recalculate button and the save button. Trust me, if you make adjustments to the annual report and you don't click the recalculate, it's not going to recalculate it. You're going to have the old values in there. And if you leave a tab without saving it, I don't know what's going to happen. I've seen it where it works fine. I've seen it where you lost everything that you entered. So a guiding principle, click recalculate after every update, click save when you leave the tab. And do not print. There will be a print key, as you will see when I open this up. There'll be a print button up on top. Do not click it until you are sure you're ready to submit the annual report, because what that does, it publishes the report. And you know, as treasurers, once you publish a report, you can't change it. It is gone. You can call somebody up and tell them you made some mistakes or write an email, but you're not going to be able to change anything. So do not press that print key. You can review the report anytime through the process, but don't hit that print button until you are certain you are done. Okay, so those were just some general things. So let's go and let's start the annual report. So the first thing that you see is, and I don't know.
John, Kevin Dunn.
Hello?
Yeah, a question. When I open up this page, it says start 2021. You are dealing with 2020. Is this just for demonstration purposes?
Yeah, I'm in the demo system. You're in the live system. So
Okay.
I'm demoing, mine's 2020. Yours is 2021.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't
It should
misunderstanding.
be.
Thank you.
Okay, so, this is your title section. This is, again, we call these reports, each individual report, we call this the wizard. Because you can bounce around anywhere you want. You don't, it will not lead you through like case intake does and case worker does. You can bounce around from tab to tab to tab. So the very first report is the title section. Now, all of this data, where does it come from? If you go to My Conferences and you go to your configuration page, you will see that you have this data, the name of your conference, and I think there's the second page as well. I can't remember the names. I'll have to, well, now I want to go back. But anyway, this, you cannot enter anything here. As you can see, these fields are protected. But if you haven't completed this information or you need to complete it, go to My Conference, go to your configuration tab, and you'll see that you'll be able to enter in the data. You come back here or populate it. The only required field here is, as you know, asterisk means required, is the date. So we're going to use N/01/2019, because this is the 2020 report, remember. 09/30/21. That's the only required field. And by the way, if you ever try to review or whatever, it will stop you. It will say that's one required field. There's two, and I'll show you what it is. And of course, like I said, always click save if you want to be guaranteed that that information was saved. So then you move to the next tab. It's the membership. I tell you that when you enter, except for the title section, for the first time, as you enter in, you will always see an initialize button. Go ahead and press it. What happens is it goes out and populates the information that it has into the report. So this is what it knows. Like I said, it doesn't know what it doesn't know that you know. So if you know for whatever the reasons that really that you have three members, we should be so lucky, under 19 years old, and you can't remember one of the guiding principles, you could uncheck, I unchecked the wrong box. You could uncheck that. And change that number to 3. Remember, 2 of your friends up here, recalculate and save, or recalculate. There it is. 3 under 19 for Latino. If I want to go back to the original value, I just recheck it. I click recalculate again. And now I think Latino should be 0, what it was before, just kind of reset it back to what it was before. Okay, so that's kind of demoing. You'll see that I won't do that again, but probably will in one other place. But that technique is used throughout this entire form, if you will. But let's talk about the data. Where does it come from?
John,
Well,
this is Laura. Can I ask a question?
sure.
Why is it important to have ethnicity?
Why is it important to have the ethnicity? It's because what the annual report requires is my.
I know, but why? Why?
I assume
Why do they
that,
want that? Why do they want that data?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know why they want it. I know that for all the annual reports I've ever done when I was conference president, that was always one of the dimensions. We have the same thing with demographics. When we get to the demographics, you're gonna ask the same question.
No, and my conference members all ask the same question. Why? Because, what's the importance of it? What's the importance of it?
Laura, this is for the membership information, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
This is,
yeah.
this is Laura, this is Jerry Beltry. This is a requirement from National. National is very focused on trying to capture statistics on the diversity of the Vincentians throughout throughout the United States. And so that's why they asked for it, right?
Okay.
It's not something the council asked for. This is actually dictated by national. And they are very focused on making sure that we are an all-inclusive society.
Okay, that answers the question. I can tell my members now why. Thank you.
Well, I'd be happy to explain it when I come up and see you on the 20th.
Okay.
Hi,
Okay.
this is Mickey. One reason we'd like to capture it is to make sure that we have members that represent the diversity of the community we serve. So we have a very heavy Hispanic population, so we're trying to make sure we have representation of Hispanics in our group. And we specifically look for people that may have that diversity. We deal with a lot of African Americans, and we have a very low membership of those Vincentians. So we're working very hard to, again, just try to represent in our Vincentian group the community that we serve. That's why we would use this.
Thank you, Mickey. That's important, right? To be that way so that we can properly serve those in need.
I'm not sure if we got a couple questions here. I gotta move through this pretty quickly, guys, to keep everybody on schedule, to be respectful of your time. But one of them I'll deal with here, the other one I can deal with offline. There are only 2 columns of check boxes versus 3 to correspond to age group. How do we change 40 and over? Well, guess what? Good catch. I caught it too. This is an issue in CMS. It will be fixed quickly for the annual report. It was just an oversight. It's in both release 3 and release 4. Doesn't really matter. You're going to have the same problem. The way that you can get around it right now is you go back to the profile, obviously, and you change somebody's profile that they're now in a different group. It'll get reflected here, but you should be able to change it like we just changed the other 2. So just want to address that one. The other question, it's not relevant to this one right now. So this is the membership report. And the only other thing I'll show you is this accordion, which basically is a summary of the 31 people. It's a breakout. Once again, it's a program issue where you don't see the breakout for the 40 and over. That will get corrected as well. So let's move through the tabs. Next one is the treasurer report. Like I said, each time you go through the first time, you have to initialize. CMS populates that report with the information that it has. And then from there, you can change information. Now on this report, really, there's not much that you can change. If you are a treasurer, and I know we have treasurers out there, there's really only 2 things that you should be looking at on this report really closely. One is last year's ending balance. So if you went to last year's September 30th or last year's annual report, that should be last year's ending balance. And of course, the beginning balance is the same because it's ending of the year's beginning balance this year. You should verify that as well. And then this balance right here, you should look at your September 30th month-end report. And that should be your ending balance. That should equal your ending balance on September 30th report as well. So that's what you're looking for. The ability to change last year's ending balance, I say no, unless you really have a need. And I would check with Jerry or Amanda first, or somebody in accounting, of why you're doing that. Because obviously last year's ending balance is just brought forward. And if you think it should be different, then there could be a different problem. But of course, with the C and the check mark, you can do. So this is just a report. Of course, you look at the receipts, you got the expenses, and you can go through it, all day long if you want. And eventually I'll show you, we can preview the entire report. So the action really happens here and here, in goods and services and visits and services. So typically, this is where you'll probably make some adjustments, once again, in order to use this, you want to initialize it initially, see what the system says. In my example that I used for my Christmas program, I did give those 60 families food as part of the Christmas program. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to update that with some totals. I'm gonna update the food number of times, and that's really, in my vernacular, number of families. I gave 60 times, I gave them food, every client, so I'm gonna update it, and that's gonna be 227 if my math is right. And I'm gonna update the value of that food. Well, it's 19,120 right now, and I'm gonna make that 2620. And once again, I'm gonna go call on my friend, the recalculate button. That it's in the system. And that's what I know it to be. And again, if you want to reset it back, all you gotta do is check the box and hit recalculate again. So using my Christmas program as an example, that is one adjustment. But once again, you have many programs, I'm sure, like all conferences do, that are outside of CMS, and that CMS does not know about. This is your opportunity to get them into CMS by overriding what CMS knows. Okay, so that's one area. The other area is visits and services. I won't spend the time, going over what the C means and all of that. Really. Okay, so this is what's in the system right now. We have 150 people, 153 people held, home visits, all your visit types and that sort of stuff. Here's the total number of visits that you have. Here's the total number of people that you held. If I want to change that, and in my example, my Christmas example, I'm going to change that 323. I'm going to change that 323 to 383 because I held 60 families as if I did 60 home visits, but it's another in-person visit. That's one, and I'm going to change the number of help to I'm going to add 360 to the 1456, which is going to be 1816. Once again, I'm going to do a recap. So you would go through this and make your adjustments that you need to make. CMS told you what it knows. It wants to know what you know so that we will have a complete and accurate report.
Hey, John,
Yes.
after recalculate, don't you have to click the save?
Yeah, no, you have to click the save. I say click save when you leave the tab. If I'm about ready to leave this tab and go here, I would click the save there. I didn't do it before, so I'm trying to get through this. But I say click recalculate, while you're in there. But before you leave this tab and you go to another tab, I would click save. Now, if you want to be super cautious, always click save. No harm, no foul. You can be protected. But you absolutely need to click save as you move from tab to tab because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's all I can tell you. So I always click save. Okay, hours and miles. Once again, we're coming in for the first time. We initialize it. Now, you cannot change anything on this report. Directly. Indirectly, where the hours and miles get reflected is by you going back to the volunteer task and entering in volunteer hours and miles, and then coming back doing a recalculate, and those hours that you entered in the volunteer task function would be reflected here in this report. But really, there is nothing, no update you can do, except for one. You see that there's a star, which means it's a required field. I try to do a preview, I think it should stop me. It did. There are two fields that are required to do a preview. One was the two front date of the report, which we did back when we did the title section. And two is the hours for non-veterans. Now, 0 is a valid entry. So you don't have to put some bogus number in there just to get by this screen. 0 works just like anything else. Okay? So then you would do recalculate. Now, if I try to do a preview, it'll allow me, but I'm not going to do it yet. I'll do it later on. I'm going to move to another tab. So good practice is to click save. Find demographics first time through. I have to initialize it. This is going to give us our breakout by ethnicity, male and female. And what's counted here is number of people in a household. So this isn't that we, in this example, Caucasians, 15 clients. No, that's 15 household members that were Caucasian. So it's total number of household members, not just the client that's reflected in those counts. Okay? So that is that. I want to preview the report at any time. I can preview it. I'm going to talk about the print options that you have. That's one option is print. The other one, I'm sorry, preview. Eventually it will come up with the report. And I believe I got to do this, but you'll see it. There you go. So here's your annual report. And you're just previewing it. You haven't printed it. Like I said, the print signals that the report's done and it will publish it. You don't want to do it until you've checked everything out. And you sent this report before. It looks very familiar. It is the monthly report on steroids. It's 12 months of data versus 1 month of data. Same format, you have your appendices, that sort of thing, no different. Yeah, okay, so that's the preview. Once you print it, what will happen is that it will publish the report. And you're familiar with that because that's what happens when you do your monthly reports. They get published on the monthly. Well, this will get published under annual. Like the last one we published was 2019. I haven't published 2020 yet. If I did that, then it will be in that column. And then at any time, I can click on it and view it, but I can't make any changes to it. Just like you can't make any changes to the annual to the monthly report. So same, no difference. Let's see, was there anything else on here that I was going to show? Oh, just one thing about going back to the in-kind goods and services. And we talked about this, and this is one way to change it. I think you all know this, but I'll just repeat it. If you go through Express Assistance, and it's a good practice that you do for some of the programs that are outside of CMS. And again, I'll use Christmas as an example. When that event occurred, a good practice would be to go into Express Assistance and put in, the information that's required. And one of the pieces of information is the value of that food. In our case, it was $1,500. And then it would be automatically calculated in CMS for the annual report. You wouldn't have to go in here and adjust the total for the dollar amount. You would have to still adjust the total for the number of times because Express only counts it as 1. So you would have to still up this counter by 60. But here's my point. My point is we all wait to the end of the fiscal year and then try to remember all the stuff that we did. We did a lot of stuff besides enter cases into the system. Well, a good practice is to enter it in through Express Assistance for in kind when the event occurs or right after event. So the event occurred, so you won't have to remember that piece of it. I just thought I'd pass on that little hint. It's helped me at times, so that I don't have to go back and try to recreate the year all over again. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to print this guy. And it tells me, are you sure you really want to do this? I can preview, go back, I'll say print. Again, I'm on the test system. Hopefully everything was fine here. I haven't tested this out because I wanted to demo it to you. You know, right at 125, which is cool. Should go out there and print it. 89. Okay, so it's printed. And if you go, so that's your final report. And if you go back to, like I promised you, now from this point on, you can view the report. Now you see the view link. And if you go through the reference guide, the last page there are your print options. And the last thing I talk about is submit. So the last phase to the process. Remember, it was prepare, it was update, it's print, submit the report. And I think the deadline, my slide, I think says October 31st. I was a little more gracious and giving you one extra day. I talked to Cheryl before, she said October 30th. So let's stick with what Cheryl said, October 30th. And when your annual report is due to the CSC, and I think you send them to Ebony. So preferably, they would like the electronic version. So if you to create the PDF, send that along with an email and say that you approve, because obviously this goes to the president, he's got to approve it, and then on to the CSC, and that serves as an electronic signature. If you're still old fashioned and you like sending in paper, or if you like faxing, I don't know why, but if you do, that's cool too. We'll take it that way. But you need to sign the report. You need to sign the treasurer's report. There's signature blocks there for the treasurer and for the president. And then you can fax it in or you can mail it in. The point is, you get it in. But I'm going to go back to the original statement that I made. What's important here is to have a complete and accurate annual report. And CMS cannot do it alone. CMS knows what you put in and values what you put in your conference put in all year long. And I think it will record it accurately. But there's the other piece to it of what you need to put into the system too. Besides national wanting a report, it's not why we do it. Because national wants it. Sure, the primary reason is why it's one of the reasons. And because Cheryl needs it for the auditors and Georgia needs it for when we apply for grants, this information is extremely valuable. The way I look at the annual report, it tells me about all the sacrifices that our volunteers made in order to make this happen, and all the neighbors that they served, and the people that they helped. That's, you get underneath the numbers, that's what it says. We changed people's lives. Look what we did. And it's not to pat ourselves on the back, it's to know that we're doing something really good for our neighbors. So I don't look at just the numbers, I look at what's underneath the numbers. There are requirements. National does require it. Georgia does require it. We need to have it when we apply for grants. Absolutely. Some of you use it. I know I used to use it as a president. We put it in our parish bulletin to show our donors, our parishioners primarily, how we spend their money and look at the good that they did. We do that. We used to do that on a quarterly basis. Now we do it on an annual basis. But the point is that's what's important. That's what the numbers tell us. They're not just numbers and stuff we have to do. That's why I'll go back and say the preparation phase is your most important phase. And you can do it right now between now and September 30th. And I showed you all the tools that you have available to make that process as smooth as possible and less stressful. Like I said, I was a conference president and I know the stress and I know the challenges of a annual report. And hopefully CMS with the tools that it has available just makes it easier on you and all your conference members. So I thank you and I'll take questions. It's exactly 1:30. So if anybody's got a fast question, I'll be glad to answer it. If not, certainly submit it through the chat and I'll try to get to you or try to get you the response as quickly as possible. That's it.
Thank you, Don.
You done?